Oh, I see everything seems to be in order. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, 'tis I, Michael A. Grimm, aka the Multi-Voice. I have many voices, but one opinion. And welcome for another episode of Doctor Who-Athon. And, sorry, folks, for that one I did on the Tenet era that took a really long time. I'll promise you I'll try to make it short this time. But since the departure of David Tennant, and of course that little bonus review where I talk about the 60th anniversary, now let's talk about a certain Doctor that pretty much made me become, well, it did start with David Tennant, who made me become a Whovian, and then I started watching some of another one known as the Matt Smith era. And it was the one that made me want to get this. This was my first sonic screwdriver that most of you remember seeing me with. And the reason why I picked this sonic screwdriver, even though this one was chipped off because I dropped it, but it still works, I just removed the batteries because they were dead. But, I picked this sonic screwdriver because it was a lot longer than David Tennant's. So, I know, I kind of sound like I'm conversating for something. But anyway, let's get started with the Matt Smith era, shall we? After David Tennant said, "I don't want to go," he regenerated into none other than Matt Smith. Now, one thing I have to say about Matt Smith, he's a little bit like Sylvester McCoy. Because another showrunner goes by the name of Stephen Moffat, and I always do seem to like his style. He did bring in a lot of drama and humor into the series. And, I mean, he's a lot like, he does make me think of Sylvester McCoy, because the first time when they had Sylvester McCoy doing the part for the Doctor, they decided to start the series more corny, silly, funny, until some of the fans demanded to bring it back in the way the show should be. So the Sylvester McCoy is both campy, but also funny and dramatic at the same time, and that's exactly what Matt Smith is like. And in this episode and of course, Matt Smith, he played the Doctor from 2010 to 2014. And in this episode called The 11th Hour, Matt Smith crash-landed his TARDIS to a little girl's yard. Her name is Amelia Pond, played by Caitlin Blackwood. And, of course, Matt Smith showed up saying, "Hello, can I have an apple?" And, of course, he took a bite of the apple, hated it, and, of course, keep on asking Amelia to cook something for him to eat. He tried beans, hate it, and tried bacon, he hated it, until he finally tried fish fingers and custard. And he loved it. And then she wondered about that she had a crack on the wall. So the Doctor saw a crack on her wall. Turns out it's something else. But what it leads to is that crack on the wall leads to Prisoner Zero. And then the Doctor said, "I had to go. He'll be right back. He promised." And he says, "Trust me, I'm the Doctor." And then when he took off, but when he came back a couple of years later. I mean, he said 5 minutes, but little did I know it took 5 years, or a little more, to see that Amelia Pond is all grown up as Amy Pond, played by the lovely and very attractive actress Karen Gillan. And yes, it's the same Karen Gillan who played a soothsayer in one of David Tennant's episodes. And also has another companion named Rory Williams, played by Arthur Darval. And it turns out that this Prisoner Zero has been putting people into comas, but of course taking their forms out in the street. And even Rory's trying to take pictures show to prove to people, but they won't listen to him. Until all of a sudden he finally captured Project Zero. And of course, the alien species known as the Atraxi was looking for Prisoner Zero. And of course, the Doctor called the Atraxi and said that they were planning to destroy the Earth. And so he decided to have a talk. He's going to have a discussion with the Atraxi about not trying to destroy the Earth. So he's going to put on a show. And of course, he told the Atraxi, is this planet a threat? And they went through the history, and it says no. And he says, had they broken any laws to the Atraxi? They've gone through everything? No. And one question he said, is this planet protected? And it shows all the alien invaders from all the old shows. Actually, mostly Christopher Eccleston and David Tennant series. And he said, you got to ask yourself, what happened to them? And it shows all the Doctors throughout the whole series until Matt Smith went through the screen of David Tennant saying, hello, I'm the Doctor. Basically, run. And of course, they run because he said, leaving is good, never coming back is better. And that's what he always does. And he finally get back to his TARDIS, and he finally came back fixing everything, and he took Amelia with him. And then they went to the next episode called The Beast from Below, where they see the Starship UK. It's like a space country. And of course, it's ruled by a queen this time, and it's Queen Elizabeth X, played by the lovely Sophia Okonedo. I hope I got her last name right, Okonedo. And it turns out that the Starship UK, under the ship, is a star whale. And it's the last of its kind. They start torturing. Turns out that they were kind of hurting it, giving it harm. And Queen Liz knew about it. And she forgot. But they decided to do better with the star whale. Because if they let the whale go, everybody in the Starship UK will die. So it's better to just leave it be and let it float all the way through space without any harm. And then in the victory of the Daleks, the Doctor meets Winston Churchill, played by Ian McNeice. And it shows that they have an ultimate weapon that pretty much would bring down the Germans in World War II, which is they had the Daleks. And the Doctor don't trust them, but they're like, they are our secret weapon. We might be able to turn the tides of the war. But the Doctor says, no, they're not. But it turns out that the Daleks, they wasn't invented by this scientist named Brace Whale, who is actually a Dalek pilgrim. The Dalek pilgrim. They were about ready to detonate him until he told them think about his memory. And it turns out that he did fall in love with somebody. So that pretty much put a blockage to the Dalek. And then there was the other story called the Time of the Angels. And that's where we start introducing a new kind of threat, the Weeping Angels. Which it is, I know that the Weeping Angels showed up on in that episode Blink. But this time, River Song showed up. And it turns out that she was a prisoner. Because in the next episode called Hesh and Stone, River killed a man. And the army's running for her from her wedding. And the Doctor wants to know, what did River killed? But of course he outwitted the Weeping Angels. Of course the Doctor defeated the Angels, and next mission. Now this one is a shocker right here. There's an episode called Vampires in Venice. And it was nothing like that Tom Baker episode, State of Decay. Because it turns out that they're not vampires. They are these blood-sucking fish who calls themselves the Saturninitans. And of course, this time the Doctor brought Worry with him in this adventure. And of course, one thing I would like to mention about vampires, there was a Big Finish audio with Peter Davison, which is called The Goth Opera. And it's based from a book, which was an adaptation to the audio they made. So it kind of proves my point. Vampires do exist in Doctor Who. Duh. So it could be possible that the Doctor can meet Dracula. But you're just so close-minded to hear it, to understand it. But anyway, there's, and of course they did mention about something called The Silence Will Fall. And the Doctor trying to figure out what that means. And then there was an episode called Amy's Choice, where they start falling asleep and into a dreamland where Amy is pregnant and Worry grows a ponytail, and they're in a peaceful town. But it turns out they're all in a dream run by the Dream Lord, played by Toby Jones. But of course the Doctor dealt with that one. And then there was Hungry Earth involving the Silurians. And one thing I remember about the Silurians is that they are prehistoric people has been around before the human race. And they were trying to take over and wipe out the human race, but the Doctor tried to prevent that. And then there was Cold Blood. Oh yeah, Cold Blooded is supposed to take place after Hungry Earth. And Nestori Shidori is played by the most hilarious and lovely comedian, Mira Sal. And all of a sudden, the crack showed up, and it grabbed Worry. So now, Worry is gone from existence, and now Amy has no memory. But every time when she's trying to think of something sad, she starts crying, and tears start coming out of her eyes for no reason. Because deep down inside, she's she moans over Worry, and she doesn't know why. And then there was Vincent and the Doctor, where Vincent van Gogh created a painting that has the TARDIS in it. So the Doctor went all the way to the past to meet Vincent van Gogh, played by Tony Karen. And it turns out that there is an alien species who called the Acarphreus. And of course, they notice that Vincent van Gogh takes his life in the past, so Amy tries to change history a bit. So one thing she did, she told the doctor to take Vincent van Gogh with them and take him to the museum where all of his artwork is at. And they come across Dr. Black, played by Bill Nye, who told him everything that he knows about Vincent van Gogh, how he admires his artwork, and how much emotion he puts to it and everything. And it brought Vincent van Gogh into tears. So they put him back into his past, and then they looked in the year of his death. It didn't change. He still died the same year. That's the thing about being the Time Lord. They cannot change history. Those are the rules. And no matter how hard you tried, you cannot change it. And then all of a sudden there is this episode called The Lodger. And you have Craig, played by James Corden. And of course his wife, Sophie, played by Daisy Hagar. And they went, turns out that their upstairs bedroom had something odd going on upstairs, and the doctor tries to figure it out while he's trying to be a good roommate for for the couple. But and of course it turns out he's a really good football player, which here in America it's called soccer, but I have to say football because I don't want a British person to call me an uneducated Yank. So, the doctor dealt with the lodger, and everything went back to normal. And then there's a whole deal with Pandorica. In the Pandorica, it's supposed to... Pandorica is supposed to be this huge, giant cube that would never be touched. And everybody's in it. Vincent van Gogh, Churchill, River Song. They all know what's going on. And, of course, they come across the, Durham, played by, Simon Fisher-Becker. The doctor meets River on Stonehenge and find Pandorica. Anyway, folks, when it turns out that all the aliens showed up, and of course, surprisingly, Roman Rory came back. And the army remembered the Pandorica's box. And of course, I remember the speech that the doctor made, going like, "Hello, Stonehenge! Whoever takes Pandorica takes the universe. But bad news, folks, 'cause guess who? Ha! First question, who's got Pandorica? Answer, I do. Next question, who's gonna take it from me? Come on! Look at me! I got no weapon, no backup, worth a damn. Oh, and I got nothing else to lose. So anybody's out there whizzing about with your silly little guns and think to take Pandorica from me, but tonight, just remember who's standing in your way. Remember every black day I ever stopped you again and again. Through the small thing. Let somebody else try first." But it turns out that they didn't show up to take Pandorica, they want the Doctor in Pandorica. And it turns out that Rory and the Roman soldiers, they are the Autons. You know, those mannequin dummies that their hands split and a laser pops out. So they started shooting everybody, and even Rory shot Amy. They put the Doctor in Pandorica, and that was it. And then in the next episode of Big Bang, there's a backstory of young Amelia Pond, who starts seeing no stars in the whole galaxy. No stars in the solar system. And the Doctor leaves clues to young Amy, and young Amy meets old Amy in Pandorica. Rory gets the Doctor out of all the alien who put him... that became... all the aliens became stones. And of course, the famous Fez. Wait a minute, I think I have a Fez. Yeah, I have a Fez right here. It's a Shriner's Fez, but still. And they always tell him, what is he wearing? He said, Fez, I wear a Fez now. Fezes are cool. No, they're not. Just like what he says about his bow tie. He says bow ties are cool. I beg to differ. Leather jackets are cool. That's my opinion. Leather jackets are cool, not bow ties. I say, but dangling ties are cool, because it's more laid back and comfortable. At least you don't have something to wrap around your neck strangling you. But anyway... River, she showed no mercy on one of the Daleks, and the Doctor takes Pandorica to stop the Big Bang to stop the Big Bang in order to save the universe. And the crack is gone. The Doctor found young Amy. The Doctor shows up at Amy and Rory's wedding, and the Doctor, he started celebrating by dancing and doing that famous dance move he did there. Oh, wow. That's Matt Smith for you. And the Doctor asked River, is she married? And she said not yet. And then there is Christmas Carol, which is referencing Dickens' Christmas Carol, where there is this Scrooge-like character named Kazrin Surdek, played by Michael Garbin. And it turns out that Kazrin, he kept a very beautiful young girl in this frozen stasis so she would not die, because sooner or later she's going to die if he keeps her out of the stasis, so he kept her in. And the lady is Abigail Pettigrove, played by the lovely Catherine Jenkins. And the biggest shock of all, the Doctor ended up married to Marilyn Monroe. Hey! I wanted to marry Marilyn Monroe! But of course there are 20 million other guys who wants to, too. Yeah. But anyway... And of course, there's a whole dealing with a flying shark, which I gotta say, that's really creative, because I love sharks. They're my favorite animals. And seeing a shark flying around the sky, it's scary, but fascinating. It makes me want to study them. And what the Doctor's trying to do, he's trying to act like the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future to make sure that Kazrin ain't gonna die, because there's a ship about ready to crash land in the town, and that would bring the death of a bunch of people, and they want him to change the weather machine so they won't crash, but he refused. but they finally made him able to change, because one thing that he showed about his background is his abusive dad. That's why he was acting the way he acted, except he couldn't hit a child because he used to be hit by his father. And then we have this other episode called the Impossible Astronaut, where the Doctor ends up in America in 1969 with Amy, Rory, and River Song, and all of a sudden they start spotting the Silence. Now, I know some of you are kind of thinking they kind of resembled the Slender Man, but of course, one thing I know about these Silence, these are creatures who shows up. You spot them, but if you turn your head, they wipe out the memories out of your mind, so you automatically forget that you ever spotted them. So the only thing you can remember them if you have one of them looking at you, or you keep looking at them. Gee, that's kind of different than the Weeping Angels. I mean, in the Weeping Angels, you keep your eyes open. Don't blink, don't move your head, because they're very fast, and they take you into the past. The Silence, on the other hand, you see them, you get terrified, but if you turn your head or look away, you automatically forget all about them. And of course, they shoot lightnings out of their fingers, making you disappear out of existence, and nobody remembers where you are. And of course, this is where it got to this moment here, ladies and gentlemen, where a mysterious astronaut showed up, and the astronaut killed the Doctor. And the Doctor dies. But they went to the diner and discovered that the Doctor was alive, and they wanted to know what the hell's going on. And they meet this guy who goes by the name of Canton, Delaware, played by Mark Sheppard. And they meet Richard Nixon, played by Stuart Mulligan. And I know what some of the people are saying about the president. And of course, all of a sudden, turns out that Amy was pregnant, and the Doctor faked his death, and they try to help out on the Apollo 11. And you know that famous scene, the one where Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, and the first famous line, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." But the Silence, they got Amy, and the Doctor tricked the Silence. They used one of the phones and videoed one of the Silence saying, "You should kill us all on sight." And when they were watching the moon base scene where Neil Armstrong jumps into the moon, it cut to the Silence saying, "You should kill us all on sight." So every time when they see the Silent, they'll kill them, leaving them as targets. And they even meet this mysterious woman with the eye patch, who turns out she's the one who is responsible for the death of the Doctor by that mysterious astronaut, which her name is Madame Coverin, played by Frances Barber. The lovely Frances Barber. And turns out that she's behind all this, but we get more to her later. Right now, she just appears out of nowhere. And then we get the Curse of the Black Spot, where it involves pirates. Arr, matey! Or if you prefer, Captain Jack Sparrow, savvy? Resurrum. Why is the rum gone? But on this one, there's a captain who goes by the name of Captain Henry Marvey, played by Hugh Bonneville. And there is this mysterious siren who shows up. And here's the weirdest thing. It turns out that every pirate who gets cut, this siren shows up and takes them away. And they get this black spot in their hand. And when the siren starts singing, they get all, I must go to her. And of course, Rory got marked, and Amy tries to protect him. I mean, even when the siren was doing her singing and Rory starts going after her, Amy just pushed him back and say, "Back off, bitch, the man's mine." And the siren, I mean, she is played by the lovely Lily Cole. I would say lovely because she is mysterious. I mean, she is mesmerizingly beautiful. But it turns out that that the siren is not a siren at all. She is actually a virtual doctor in a Gorn ship, in a Gorg ship. So when she took the people who was marked, she was actually healing them on the process. And of course, the captain has a son named Toby Avery, and he got marked. So the captain was trying to be more of a hero towards his son than a thief. And most of the people who are wounded are finally healed, and now the captain took over the ship and decided to sail in the space instead of the seas. First time to be space pirates, eh, matey? Ahar! And then there is this episode called The Doctor's Wife. And we have this character. I mean, they come across this weird woman named Idris. And she remembered, I mean, she told the doctor that he used to call her sexy. Until the doctor finally discovered she is the TARDIS's subconscious. And, of course, Idris is played by the lovely Serana Jones. And her body was getting weak. So the only thing that the doctor needs to do is to let her go, let her pass away, so her subconscious and her soul can go back into the TARDIS. And it turns out there was a bunch of aliens who were killing Time Lords throughout history. And then there is Rebel Flesh, where it involves clones. That's a shocker. And of course, Almost Human, where Amy is a clone. Real Amy is pregnant and been held against her will by none other than Madame Kavarian. And of course, the next episode says Good Man Goes to War. And of course, Madame Kavarin, Madame Kavarin, that's her name, Madame Kavarin. She was behind it all. Rory shows up and he got some balls because he walked towards the to the Cyberman and he says, "I have an answer for the Doctor and a question for me. Where is my wife?" Don't give me those blank looks. You have your ship all over. You see everything. Just answer my question, and I'll be on my way.
What is the Doctor's answer?
And behind them, there's a bunch of ship exploded. And now he says, would you like me to repeat the question? And it turns out that somehow Madame Kavarin, she has a beef against the Doctor because he's been going through time and space, changing things. And she's starting to remind me of Amanda Waller in the Doctor Who universe. And you know how much I feel about Amanda Waller. And for those of you who don't know how I feel about Amanda Waller, well, Amanda Waller's a bitch to me, is a bitch in whole wide world, always a bitch, and she's just a male biatch. And they have a military who works for her, and they have these guys who calls themselves the headless monks. They have no heads, which that's kind of weird. And of course, it turns out one of the soldiers is actually Lorna Bucket, played by the same actress who is in Star Trek Strange New World, Christina Chong. That's kind of interesting. I mean, first she appeared in Doctor Who, and now she's in Star Trek. Who would have thunk it? And of course, we have these new kind of characters who decided they owe the Doctor for sparing their lives, so now they're going to repay it. And we meet the Peter Noster gang with Madame Vestra, played by Neva McAvitish. And of course, there's Jenny, played by Catherine Bell, and Strags, the Sontaran, played by Dan Sparky. And also River Song returned as well to join in on the fight. And they meet this colonel named Colonel Matson, played by Danny Sapani. That is his name. And of course, the Doctor got back up, and of course, they stopped the troops, and they even told the Colonel to run away, because he will go down in history as Colonel Runaway. And of course, surprisingly, the Doctor can speak baby. And they decided to name the baby Melanie Pond. And then the monk got they showed up, they got the bait, and of course the woman got the baby. River told everything to the Pond. Turns out that Melanie Pond is River Song. Somehow she is Rory and Amy's daughter. And then on the next episode, we got Let's Kill Hitler. And we have this character who goes by the name of Mel's Zucker, played by the lovely Nina Torreston White. And they went all the way back and found this device that, I mean, it turns out he's supposed to be like some kind of robot about ready to kill Hitler, but they stopped him. And Mel's regenerate into River. So it turns out that River Song is also a Time Lord. She can regenerate. And of course, there is this thing called the Tesselecta, and River saved the Doctor. And then the Night of Terror George meets the monsters, and it turns out that George is a Tenza, and of course he knows how to control the monsters by the power of love from his dad. And then there is the girl who waited, where there was these hand bots from Generation 7. And Amelia had waited for so long that Amelia Pond turned into an old lady because she waited for so long. So now the Doctor had to change a little history there to prevent that from happening. And then in God Complex, there is a hotel, take place in 1980, which is a nightmare hotel. And we have a minister. Oh, no, wait. Menother. A Menother involved. And of course, there's these creatures who are called. I mean, these creatures are called the Tavalan. The Tavalan. They're the rodent-looking aliens, and they're sort of cowardly. They're the most invaded alien species in the world. They let any alien species invade their planet and take over. And they don't fight back. They just gave their planet to whoever wants it. And there's one who calls by the name of Gibbous, played by that funny David Williams. And of course, there is closing time where Craig and Sophie, they had a baby. And it turns out the entire shop has been taken over by Cybermen. So now the Doctor had to put a stop to that, and the biggest shocker of all, Amelia Pond became a model. And then the wedding of the River Song, the Doctor's time is out, and the woman's about ready to do what she's supposed to. Sent her and the Silence took River and forced her to be their weapon. Durham, his head ends up in a box. Now, not many people know about. I guess I must have missed Durham. Durham, he's a blue, bald, fat alien who gives out any kind of information that anybody wants to know about. And of course, the Brigadier, the Doctor was trying to call the Brigadier from UNIT, but the Secretary says that the Brigadier had passed away. And of course, in this world becomes all topsy-turvy because the world is mixed between the past and the present, like William Churchill is emperor, and Cleopatra is like president, and things like that. It's just a really topsy-turvy universe right there. River killed Song, but River stopped the Doctor to trying to fix it, and the Silence escaped and killed Coverin, and the Doctor and River meddled. Doctor fixed it. Doctor lives. Turns out that the Doctor was the Tessellacata. So pretty much the Doctor faked his death. And of course, there is the ultimate question. The one that he always keep asking him. The one that the Doctor always keep running from all his lives. Doctor Who. So now, Doctor, the window, and the wardrobe Oh, Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe. There is a mother, son, and daughter in 1941, and the Doctor invited this widow and her family into this big house, and of course there's this big present box, and the box took them into the year 5345, far distant future. And it turns out that, and of course, turns out that the forest was run by these Androsina trees. So they're like they're tree people. So now, after that, the Doctor went back to Amy. And then we have this episode called Asylum of the Daleks. And there is this woman who goes by the name of Darla von Kolfsen, played by Amelia Marnissa. And it turns out that she's one of these human Daleks. And of course there's this other new character, which it turns out it is Clara Oswin, played by Jenna Coleman. Ah, Jenna Coleman. No wonder they call you the Impossible Girl. You are impossibly cute. Oh, sorry. Jenna Coleman is one of my Doctor Who crush. I mean, I would love to have her as my companion if I was the Doctor. But anyway, turns out that Amy and Rory, they were getting a divorce, but the Daleks grabbed them along with the Doctor, and they went to the asylum. To make a long story short, it turns out that Clara is a Dalek. And one thing that Clara did is trying to destroy the asylum, and the last message is, "Run, you clever boy, and remember me." And they're trying to figure out what that means. So, now the next episode called Dinosaurs on the Spaceship, where we have this, where the Doctor meets this hunter who goes by the name of Randall, played by Robert Graves, and of course, he also meets Queen Nefertiti. Now, forgive me, but this is how it's pronounced, Queen Nefertiti, played by Rain Steele, the lovely and very attractive Rain Steele. They all of a sudden got into the Doctor's TARDIS and journeyed with him, and even Rory's uncle, named Brian Williams, played by Mark Williams. Imagine that. They end up in a spaceship that is filled with dinosaurs. Wow, talk about a futuristic version of Jurassic Park. Sadly, there's no T-Rex in this one. What? I like T-Rex. And of course, it turns out that the ship was controlled by this guy who goes by the name of Solomon, played by David Bradley, before he played the first Doctor. You know, he played William Hartnell in that biography movie known as Adventure Through Time and Space, where he played William Hartnell. And then after that, he continued on playing the first Doctor throughout the rest of the series. And throughout the entire adventure, turns out that Rendell kind of fancy Queen Nefertiti, and Nefertiti seemed to fancy him, so he left Queen Nefertiti along with Randall out in the African jungle. Wow. A hunter and an Egyptian queen. Quite a shocker, if you ask me. And of course, there is there's a show called. There's this one episode called "Town Called Mercy," and you have a sheriff in town who goes by the name of Sheriff Isaac, played by Ben Brower. And now I know Ben Brower because I know him from Farscape and Stargate. And it's not often that you have one of the actors who is in both of the famous sci-fi franchise Stargate and Farscape appearing in Doctor Who. And I love Farscape. Oh, speaking of Stargate, guess what, folks? I'm planning another Doctor Who script, except this time it's going to involve my friend Yana, who's playing Doctor Who. And believe it or not, this Doctor is going to enter the Stargate universe. So I'm doing an audio crossover of Doctor Who meets Stargate. I haven't started the script yet, but as soon as I get my thoughts going, I'll probably work on a script. But anyway, back on the thing, shall we? And of course there is this mysterious gunslinger, played by Tech Andrew Brooke. Oh, Tech Andrew Brooke, he was one of the aliens who have these blue markings on their faces. And they're supposed to be highly advanced, peaceful people, but this gunslinger has a vendetta towards him. And of course there's this one character who goes by the name of Kaylor Jex, played by Adrian Sakarbur. And then there is Power of the Three, where it evolves. And then we have the new Brigadier in town. A brand new Brigadier for unit. And she goes by the name of Kate Lethbridge Stewart, played by Gemma Redgrave. And I looked her up. Yes, she is related to one of the Redgraves. And it turns out that these black cubes, yeah, that's what they are, the black cubes, it turns out that they were owned by this alien who is actually, they are called the Shakari, played by Stephen Burkoff. Oh, and this one's going to be the saddest one of all, folks, because brace yourself on this one. This one is called Angels Take Manhattan, and it involves the Weeping Angels. And this is where it all happens. They go through all this topsy-turvy here and there, and at the end, they try to stop the Angels for trying to get Rory and Amy, but it was too late. The Angels grab Rory, so now he dies in the past. And Amy, she feels like she can't move on without Rory, so she tells the Doctor goodbye, and she gets taken by the Angels as well. So now, Rory and Amy, they both say goodbye to the Doctor, and they live peacefully together. Well, that's okay then, I guess. But, of course, even though they leave the show, they moved on to better things. To my opinion, I thought that, Arthur Davell, he plays Rip Hunter on the Legend of Tomorrow, and he's a Time Master. And it kind of makes me think, is he doing like a DC version of Doctor Who? And it's just too bad he only appeared in 1 or 2 seasons and then they killed off his character. While Karen Guinness, on the other hand, she plays Nebula on Guardians of the Galaxy. And I do like her performance pretty well. So now, on the next episode, this one they did called The Snowman, where the Doctor, after losing Rory and Amy, he shuts himself off up in the cloud in his TARDIS in the Victorian London, where at the same time, the Peter Noster gang is involved, along with the Doctor. And from out of nowhere, out comes Clara herself. Clara. Anyway. Turns out there's a group of snowmen that came to life. And it turns out they're all linked to the Great Intelligence. And some of you probably remember the Great Intelligence from Patrick Troughton's episode, The Web of Fear. And, of course, there's a guy who runs the snow and also is in league with the Great Intelligence, which is Dr. Simon, played by Richard E. Grant. That's quite a turn for him, because he played the Doctor in that Red-Nosed Day parody of Doctor Who, and then he played the Doctor in The Scream of the Shaka, and now he plays a guy who's responsible to the Great Intelligence. And, of course, Clara died, and she said, "Run, you clever boy, and remember me again." So now the Doctor got out of his mopey state and decided to go back and do his mission by traveling through time and space. So now we got the Bell of St. John, where there is this sort of evil Wi-Fi that every time when somebody hits that mysterious Wi-Fi, it takes people into the Wi-Fi stasis and be stuck there forever. So now the Doctor found Clara, and of course he showed up as a monk, so he said monks are not cool, which that's true, they're not cool. But of course it was a reference of Tom Baker, because if Tom Baker didn't get the part playing the Doctor, he would have joined the monastery and became a monk. So now the Doctor has a better look, and I love this new look of Matt Smith. I mean, the purple jacket, the Victorian style, I love it. I love it a lot. And, so now the Doctor meets this woman named Miss Cavett, played by Kelly Emery. She's involved, and they were taking people into the Wi-Fi, but the Doctor persuaded her to download everybody out of the Wi-Fi immediately. People will be free. So now Clara ends up with the Doctor, and they start their adventures. And then there is Rings of Akhaturn. On this one, Clara's first mission, they're in this distant future, and they meet this little girl. Her name is Mary Gajul, played by really talented singer Emila Jones. And they were singing for this Akhaten mummy. But of course, it turns out he wasn't the threat. It was the Akhata itself, this big sun that feeds off memories and the battle And of course, Matt Smith dealt with it. And then there was the Cold War, where they end up in the submarine. And of course, we have Professor Gressico, played by David Warner. The late, great David Warner, before he played the Doctor in Doctor Who Unbound. And of course, he meets this captain named Captain Zhukov, played by Liam Cunningham. And it deals with the Ice Warriors named Sakadak. But it turns out that that not all of his people are gone, because they got a message from the Alpha Centauri that they're going to bring him along with the last remains of the Ice Warriors into their citadel. And then there's the Hidden, involving the Haunted Mansion, but it turns out it's the Crooked Man, and it wasn't a ghost story, it was a love story. Journey in the center of the TARDIS, where a bunch of 3 trash collectors. Clara finds out her history of time and these warlock creatures, which turns out it was them. And then the chameleon, there is the Crimson Terror, the Crimson Horror, takes place in 1893. There is Mrs. Gullyflower, played by Diana Riggs. Some of you might remember her from The Avengers, which I'm not a big fan of, because I don't like watching spy shows. Spy comedies, yes, but spy dramas, no. And I'm afraid to say that that spy series, The Avengers, doesn't appeal to me. Sorry to put you guys down, but I'm just not a big fan. And of course, there's even Ada Gulflower, played by Rachel Sterling. And of course, the Pilanasta Gang showed up to help out. And these characters deserve a spin-off, but I started to see the point, because they don't need... the actress who played Madame Vestra has to be in that makeup every single time when they're making their show. So, I think it's better off that they do a... well, of course, Big Finish, they continue on their legacy, so now the actress who played Madame Vestra don't have to be in the makeup. They just have to do the voice. That's it. So they did the spin-off in Big Finish. And it turns out that there is this character who calls himself Mr. Sweets, which turns out that he is a red leech. And then we have the Nightmare in Silver, where we have the Porridge, a character called Porridge, played by Warwick David. And of course we have the Cybermats, and of course the Doctor get infected by the Cybermat. So now the Doctor is battling against the Cyber Planner, who is known as Mr. Clever. And they keep battling against one another until the Doctor finally stopped him. And then, name of the Doctor. The Doctor ends up on Trenzalore. And it's a cemetery planet. Not a century planet, a cemetery planet. And of course, the Peter Noskagain and River Song is involved. And of course, Mr. Simon showed up, and he's with the Whispermen. And they found the time stream. Mr. Simon walked in and went into the time stream and started killing everything that the Doctor was trying to save throughout history. So pretty much they destroyed everything that the Doctor had saved. All the planets, so many worlds that he rescued and helped and saved. So Clara decided to do the impossible, and that's how she became the Impossible Girl. She went into this time stream, and she fixed everything. She helped the Doctor, saved the Doctor throughout time, from all the time streams, from all the good things he'd done. So now the Doctor has to walk in and save Clara, and therefore we meet the legendary John Hurt as the War Doctor. And not many people know why is John Hurt's there, but this would explain from the one I reviewed years and years ago when I first reviewed Doctor Who, is of course the 50th anniversary, The Day of the Doctor. And it all involves with David Tennant, who meets Queen Elizabeth I, played by Joanna Page. And of course, Kate Stewart is involved. And of course, it involves the Zygons. Now, I'm trying to be brief in this one, folks, so bear with me. Everybody knew exactly what I was talking about. I mean, dealing with the Zygons, and of course, going back to Gallifrey, saving all the Doctors together, freezing Gallifrey, put him in a stasis cube, put him in a parallel pocket universe, saving their whole planet, always bringing me into tears because it gives me tears of joy from that series. And of course it explains why Queen Elizabeth hated the Doctor and tried to have him executed, because I guess after Queen Elizabeth married David Tennant's Doctor, he must have left her all by herself, so now she vows vengeance against the Doctor. And of course we also have this character who goes by the name of Patricia, I mean, not Patricia, Petrolia, trying to pronounce, Osgood, played by Ingrid Oliver. And also, Matt Smith meets the Curator, played by Tom Baker. Would you like a jelly, baby? They're very good. And one thing I started noticing why they had John Hurt playing the War Doctor, it was because they wanted to bring Christopher Eccleston into the series, but he refused. Because, well, two reasons. He still has a fallen out with Russell T. Davies, and really don't like David Tennant's Doctor. And also, he was also busy starring in that second Thor movie, Dark World, playing the Dark Elf. So that's why they had John Hurt to replace him, playing the War Doctor, until he regenerates until Christopher Eccleston. Time of the Doctor, where there's a planet called Christmas. And all alien ship is parked. And of course, he also has a Cyberman head called Handles. And Clara had a Christmas dinner. And they even met Popple Mainframe Church. The Paul Mainframe Church, and the Silencer there. And of course they meet Tasha Lim, played by Orla Bradley. And it turns out that Planet Christmas is actually Trenzalore. So the Doctor stayed to protect the people. Clara goes home, but she came back. The Doctor's infected Tricia, and of course the famous scene in this one, turns out that he's with the crack in the wall, which is actually a crack that leads to Gallifrey. And Clara told the people from Gallifrey, the Doctor saved their planet, it's time to repay a favor, because he's in his last form and he's going to die for good. So now the Gallifreyans opened up the crack and gave him more regeneration. And of course, that's what he says. And of course, when the Dalek says this, you will die and all that, and he says, sorry, did you mention the rules? Now, you Daleks, if you laid down the law, think you're so brave. But Daleks, never, ever tell me the rules! Ha ha! Regeneration number 13. We're gonna be looking for some seriously sciencey boys. And I'll tell you one thing, it's gonna be a whopper! So you think you're gonna take me down, Daleks? If you want my life, come and get it! Get from Gallifrey, boys! But of course it made them all young, but that's just a reset. And he makes his speech, and he sees Amelia Pond for the last time, and he takes off his bow tie, and now Matt Smith became Peter Capaldi, and the only thing he says is, kidneys! I got new kidneys! Don't like the color! One question I want to ask you, do you know how to fly this thing? And that's where we're going to leave off on Matt Smith. Sorry it took a while, and sorry for all the sounds popping up here and there, and even some of the conversation from the outside. But I try my best to make it short as I can. If this is any long, I apologize. But for those of you who likes my review of Matt Smith, please leave a comment down below, hit like, and subscribe for more. And stay tuned for the next Doctor Who-Athon with Peter Capaldi. So pretty much, that's all my review of Matt Smith so far. So stay tuned for Peter Capaldi. I don't see.